Welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast, season 3. This is Ben Kinney. I'm here with Chad Heim. Say hi, Chad.
Hello, Ben.
Hey, Bob Stewart, what do you have to add today?
Perfect. That's about normal.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, Bob Stewart is not here today.
Keep his name out of your mouth.
Do not say Bob Stewart. Nobody tell Bob Stewart that we are talking about him on today's podcast. This is season 3, which is all about what, Chad?
Make, Ben, of the Win, Make, Give. We are here to help make a difference, make an impact, and make more money.
What about make cookies?
Yes.
And make cake?
That is a difference in the life of somebody, so it would count.
I did this amazing Q&A session on Instagram the other day where people asked me questions.
I did see that.
I answered every single one of them. Nearly a third of all the answers had cake involved.
Excellent. Because you just were on a cake theme, or were they actually asking cake-related questions?
What was the secret to life?
Cake.
Cake.
Well,
What's
sure.
the secret to happiness?
Cake. Yeah, actually.
Like, it just seemed like super appropriate. Today's podcast is going to be a piece of
cake.
Oh my gosh. I feel a little bit like times are changing.
Yes.
And it just feels weird. It feels weird in the world. It feels weird with social issues. It feels weird with the economy, the stock market, what's going on in real estate, jobs, businesses. People keep using this word recession, which I'm not going to talk about today. I think we might talk about it on the next podcast, but not this moment. What I'm going to talk about is the type of person that's required to do good during hard times.
Ooh, all right.
I would call that person a wartime leader.
Conciliary? Is that where we were going on this? We're watching
No.
too many mob movies?
No, like a wartime CEO,
Okay.
a wartime leader,
Yep.
a wartime general.
Okay.
Now there's peacetime leaders
Yes.
and peacetime CEOs and peacetime generals, I think. In fact, Ben Horowitz, many of you would recognize him from the venture capital firm that he co-founded, but he had quite a few successful ventures. He also wrote a book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things, which is always on my top most recommended book list. But here's what Ben said. He said I love his name, by the way. Ben said a peacetime CEO focuses on the big picture and empowers her people to make detailed decisions. A peacetime CEO focuses on the big picture and empowers her people to make detailed decisions.
Okay.
A wartime CEO, she or he, cares about a speck of dust on a gnat's ass if it interfered with the prime directive.
Ooh.
Let me repeat that because
Wow,
it's
yeah.
fun. A wartime CEO, she cares about the speck of dust on a gnat's ass if it interfered with the prime directive. He said a peacetime CEO knows what to do with the big advantage. A wartime CEO is paranoid. I'm honestly, like, we're to do a little bit of our like admit to each other things.
Yep.
I'm an extremely paranoid person.
It's not paranoid if they're actually out to get you.
Oh, okay.
Just remember
Okay,
that.
Good. Okay. He said a wartime CEO is paranoid. A peacetime CEO works to minimize conflict.
Yeah, makes sense.
A wartime CEO finds ways to take advantage or have an advantage during conflict.
Yes.
That last line I kind of roughly changed for him. So that last one was me.
Okay.
He did say a peacetime CEO works to minimize conflict. His actual line was a wartime CEO heightens the contradiction, but I didn't like that phrase. So what I was thinking of, we find advantages
Yes.
during chaos.
Yes. And there's tons of it during a wartime.
Chaos creates opportunity. Napoleon who many of you might remember from your French
Oh, I was going to
history.
remember him from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
That's where I
that
remember
too.
him from.
Yeah, from French history, right? Napoleon once said of military genius, the man who can do the average thing when everyone around him is losing his mind is a military genius.
Yes.
A military genius is the man who can do the average thing when everyone around him or her is losing their mind.
Mm-hmm.
That is such a powerful, powerful statement to me.
Oh, yeah.
How do you stay calm in chaos?
Yes.
Because the calm person wins 99 out of 100 times.
And that's simply chaos makes us go emotional.
Yep.
And when we become emotional, we usually make irrational decisions based on just immediate survival.
Yep.
When if we can remain logical, being the one who's calm during it, we can make the best decision for the situation.
Exactly.
Yeah, you all know that. You have a friend out there that you know in like chaos, you do not want that friend by your side.
Right.
And then you have that other friend that you know in chaos. Yeah, you just want to be wherever they are.
Yeah.
Because you know they're the person who's going to keep a calm head through everything.
Yeah. I've had a couple of situations in my life that were a little extreme. And I was completely like almost in this Zen state. Like once I got charged by a cougar in the wilderness.
Right.
And I was in this perfectly Zen state. And the cougar got within a couple feet of me. And I was calm and everything was fine. And then as soon as it was over, I was like, that's when I lost it.
Of course.
But during that time, I was calm.
Yeah, that's going to be the adrenaline that just releases into your body. There's nothing you can do about it.
Car accidents, a few other things that I've witnessed in front of me or had to deal with. Yeah. Can you think of any other wartime leaders?
Well, there's anytime there was war. I mean, I got to go back to Churchill. I mean, one of your favorite leaders of all time. You talk about Churchill again and again and again. I mean, is there probably a more famous leader during wartime?
What I love about these podcasts is one, we don't prep.
Nope, no prep.
Two, I rarely even tell Chad what we're going to talk about.
Did not.
And same with Bob. Don't you agree, Bob? Awesome. But Winston Churchill,
Yes.
like arguably the best example of a wartime leader.
Yes.
Now, he was not a peacetime leader. How
Right.
do you know that? Because he was kicked out of office as soon as the war ended.
Right.
He beat Hitler, ended World War II, and weeks later, he was kicked out of being the prime minister.
Yep.
Even prior to that, he was basically ousted out of the public world,
Yep.
and he was called back only when World War II was coming back around.
Right.
Because they knew, even the ones that didn't like him, they knew that when you go to war, you're going to call Winston.
Yep.
Well, Winston has, if you've studied him, and
you have.
and I have,
Oh, yes.
there are some things that he exhibits that I think makes a great wartime leader, a great wartime CEO. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's what we're going to talk today about, us all becoming a wartime CEO. And we're going to do it through a little bit of a history lesson. We're going to talk a little bit about Winston Churchill himself.
I look forward to learning more.
And then the traits that actually, I believe, made him such a successful leader during tough times.
Okay.
Churchill was a very visible leader. After Germany had bombed the London and the factories were blown up and the homes were blown up, he was seen not hiding in his bunker, but walking the streets arm in arm with his bride, visiting the bombed homes and the bomb factories, and speaking directly with the people who most likely lost elements of their health, their home, their history, their wealth, maybe even their
Loved ones.
loved ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing just to think that, as the dust settles and he's just walking down the street arm in arm with his bride, there to go door to door to check on the people and give them hope.
It was his ability to be visible and to be heard and to listen during these tough times, which gave the British people this kind of warm feeling that they, the people, could do just about anything. So if I was going to write down a trait today that I was going to say a wartime leader needs to have,
Yep.
it's visible.
Visibility. Yeah.
You need to be visible. When we watch arguably the best movie of all time with the worst ending of all time, Braveheart.
Okay.
When you watch Braveheart, he wasn't sitting up in his tent eating grapes, telling the troops to march forward.
Right.
He was painted his face blue, wearing that sweet kilt.
Yes.
In the front, yelling, "Follow me, we got this, first one out."
Yeah. Marcus Aurelius in Gladiator also, right?
Arguably another
Charge
one of the best
with
movies.
me, right? And he was leading them into the battle, not the general standing in the back saying, "Go fight."
Well, if this becomes a recession,
Mm-hmm.
or this becomes a time in history where your job, your business struggles,
Yep.
then I think this is probably a good time for you to yell, "This is Sparta."
Yes.
Instead of, right, receding back and waiting for the storm to pass.
Okay. So
Okay.
trait 1, visibility. You must be visible to be a wartime CEO.
Yeah.
Okay.
When things get tough, a wartime CEO, a wartime leader, puts on the headset and sits with the salespeople. That wartime CEO talks to the customers, gets out in front. That wartime CEO does like what the CEO of the Ritz-Carlton said, which is, my job is to direct the vision and to make sure the company is moving forward, and also to make sure the towels are straight.
Right.
The little things, right? Visibly out there making a difference.
Okay.
Well, there's another trait that I think Churchill, if he was going to be known for anything, it's going to be one of two things. I think the next one is his ability to communicate. He knew the value of a speech. Despite not being, a great speaker himself,
Right.
like naturally,
Yep.
he worked on his skills. He slowly made his words create influence across his country and across the world, especially to those people that were part of the Allied forces.
Right.
Eventually, the United States joined that war effort. What I think's funny is, Chad, you didn't know me when I was a younger child. I don't think we met for 10 or 12 years ago or whatever it was.
Yep.
But as a child, I stuttered really bad.
Right.
I had to go to a speech therapist every week, multiple times a week. It was hard for me to get sentences out. Being dyslexic, also hard for me to spell. Anybody that's read my writing in the last couple of years will tell you that I still
have challenge with that.
still
yes.
cannot spell. Just words and letters don't come out the way they should. The first time I was in a meeting and I raised my hand, I was shaking so hard, I was so scared, and I was just sitting in a chair, just saying a sentence,
Right.
and I was nervous. Do you remember that feeling at some point in your life?
No. Sorry.
Bob, what about you? See,
Still having it. Yeah,
Bob felt that way.
Bob felt it. He's still having it right now.
I was nervous.
Sure.
My first talk, the first time I gave a speech, the first time I taught a class.
Yep.
It's not something that you have to be born with. It's something that you have to work on.
Yes.
And Churchill worked hard, knowing every word was important.
Yep.
In fact, Churchill received a Nobel Prize. Do you know what it was for?
I would guess peace if I had to take a guess, since I don't know.
Literature.
Interesting.
His ability to write. He wrote many, many books, starting with a book about his father and his father's family history.
Mm,
But he wrote books about all the time that he was in, and he studied history. I mean, these are big, gigantic novels of books.
right.
And he was given the Nobel Peace Prize for literature.
Interesting.
In fact, Churchill said, courage is what it takes to stand up and speak.
Mm.
But also, courage is what it takes to sit down and listen.
Ooh.
Let me say that one more
Yes,
time.
please do.
Courage is what it takes to stand up and speak, but courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen.
That's powerful.
A wartime CEO, a wartime leader, can't just be a blubbering idiot like most of the politicians that have been elected for the last 20 years.
Right. You can go back farther than that.
They have to be somebody who's willing to listen as much as they speak, if not 10 times more.
Well, it's the old adage, right? We have 2 ears and 1 mouth. You're supposed to listen twice as much as you
That's
talk.
right. Have the courage to sit down, listen, and ask questions, right? And that's the job of a wartime.
All right. So I've got be visible, and I've got you've got to be able to communicate.
Communication.
Okay.
Okay.
What's another trait?
Well, Churchill was remembered as really the hero of the 1940s
Okay.
because he stopped the German advance,
Yes.
right? His decisions both saved his country and probably saved the world from,
Being very different today.
yeah, for sure. However, he wasn't loved, and he wasn't loved by everybody. When you think about Churchill's reputation or how people felt about him, it was varied depending on the audience.
Mm.
Like, if Churchill wouldn't have won World War II,
Yep.
it's questionable if he would have been remembered at all. And if he was remembered, it would have been remembered for his failures.
Interesting.
He is an individual that failed time and time again, but he's also an individual that persevered. He was captured in Africa and put into prison and escaped. The whole stories of what he had to do to go through that time of his life. He's a survivor. So what I think the third trait is, Chad,
Yep.
is that you got to be a survivor. You got to survive the rocks that are thrown at you, because a wartime CEO and a wartime leader has to make tough decisions.
Yes.
I'm seeing all the news articles about the layoffs, the rifts, the bankruptcies, and we're just starting this time in history.
Yep.
And you see company after company. You're seeing articles of people withdrawing job offers after the people have already accepted and given notice.
Right.
Things are changing. And these companies are having to make really, really tough decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you got to be a survivor of the ridicule, and you got to survive the praise and not let it go to your head. And you got to survive the fact that not everybody's going to like you, like
Okay.
Churchill. Half of them hated him.
And there are so many people out there, Ben, who want to be liked, and they'll make decisions so that they are liked. That sounds more like a peacetime CEO.
That's right.
Okay.
A peacetime CEO everybody loves,
Sure.
right? But when things get tough, they got to make tough decisions.
And it's the person we probably look back and thank them for making those decisions after the fact in hindsight. Yet at the time, no, we probably don't like them for the decisions they might be making.
Here's what Churchill said.
Okay.
It's not enough that we do our best. Sometimes we have to do what's required. I have this framed and hanging in my conference room outside the doors here.
Yep.
It's not enough that we do our best. Sometimes we have to do what is required. And when you do what is required, you're not always going to be liked.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
To me, 100%. There's a lot of people who don't like me, Ben.
No. Bob, what do you think of Chad?
See?
Interesting.
See what I'm saying?
Interesting.
All right. So we got 3 traits.
Okay, let's go for another one.
Okay.
Churchill was known as a soldier,
Okay.
a war correspondent,
Okay.
news basically,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
A writer
You
of
mentioned.
novels, a painter. I don't know if you guys knew that.
I did not know
many,
that.
many amazing pieces, some that have sold millions and millions of dollars. And a statesman, a politician.
Of course.
But what Churchill was passionate about was the betterment, the success, the survival of his country. He was the ultimate patriot, regardless of the criticisms, the compliments, right? The rocks that are thrown at him. He was passionate. And I want to say that if you had to add another word, it would be passion.
Okay. I can't make a cool word out of these words yet until you give me a vowel, just so you know.
I'm a little short on vowels.
All right. Vanna? No? All right.
That's funny. Passion. Churchill said that success is the ability to go from one failure to another with no loss of enthusiasm.
Yes.
Listen to that, everyone. Success is the ability to go from one failure to another with no loss of enthusiasm.
Yes. It's a great, great quote.
Every time that you run into a problem and every time that you think that things are hard or it's difficult, do you lose your tail like Eeyore? Lost my tail again today. Or do you look and you say, you know what? That has no impact on my enthusiasm because you have such passion about what you're doing. There's no failure that can suck away the passion.
Yes.
When you don't have that passion, here's what you do. You say, well, maybe I should quit.
Right.
Maybe I should do something else. Maybe I should stop running my own business and I should apply for a job.
Yep.
Maybe I should call it quits on this relationship. Whatever those things might be, when you lose the passion, you focus on the failure, you lose your enthusiasm, it all goes down in the toilet.
Okay.
Now, Churchill believed that a great leader had to have a clear vision,
Okay.
and that leader had to find a way to show that vision to his or her followers.
Yes.
That having that vision or that goal.
Yeah, so we can change the word vision in this case,
Sure.
maybe for a goal for people who are like, wait, how do I, okay,
Sure.
gotta have a goal.
Having this goal
Yep.
is as vital as any weapon you could bring to a war, right?
Sure, it brings
Guns,
clarity to everybody. We all
Guns,
understand.
bows and arrows,
Yep.
rockets,
Vision.
vision. That having something clearly defined of what winning looks like is a powerful tool, and it will get you through times of chaos or times of adversity.
Okay.
For Churchill, his vision
Yep.
for England was victory.
Of course.
In fact, he was seen often holding 2 fingers up in a V format, a V for victory.
So he started the gang signs.
I think Churchill
That-
originated.
That's where it
the
all
gang
started.
signs, I think. In fact, to quote him, right, his vision was victory. His goal was victory. So every leader, I believe, a wartime leader, needs to have a goal and a vision. What are you working towards? That the troops and the employees, that everybody can get behind. So that's our next one, Chad, vision.
Vision. So that's different than being visible,
Correct.
having a vision. Just so everybody out there is going, wait a minute, those words sound alike. Being visible was actually, so they saw you. Having a vision is having that goal that you can share with your followers.
Yes.
Okay.
Here's what he said, Chad. Victory at all costs, victory in spite of all terror, victory however long and hard the hard may be, for without victory, there is no survival.
Dave, can you like run some cool music under that while Ben's doing it, right? There should be like some military background music. I
Or
feel
maybe
like.
that great music from Any Given Sunday when
Oh,
when
sure.
Al Pacino's giving his speech.
Of course, you love that one too.
Victory at all costs, victory in spite of all terror, victory however long and hard the hard may be, for without victory, there is no survival. He had an ability to get his country to believe that they were going to be victorious. And because of that, they sent their sons and their daughters, their husbands and their wives, their parents to war.
Yep.
Knowing that many of them would not come back. But it was the patriotic thing to do to stop the tyranny of Adolf Hitler.
Yes.
Vision.
Okay. Got it. Visible, communicate, survivor, passion, vision. What's next?
I said there was two things that I think Churchill stood out for.
Yes.
Communication,
And?
courage.
Mm.
Courage is considered to be, in my mind, the skill that every leader has to have.
Okay.
Churchill was courageous for lots of reasons, being undeterred, walking the streets even when the Germans were flying over.
Yep.
In fact, there's stories of him climbing onto the roof, taking his pistol out and shooting upward at the planes in kind of an FU to the Germans. I am not afraid,
Yep.
right? Just shooting his little pistol right into the sky. He had to make really, really tough decisions in his career. Some of them were massive failures.
Sure.
Early on in his career, way before World War II,
Okay.
Churchill, during World War I, was trying to set up a way for the British and the Russians to attack Germany or defend against Germany from the Eastern Front. So think east of Germany, west of Russia. How he thought of doing that was accessing the land through the Mediterranean, up through an area called the Dardanelles, which is now Istanbul,
Okay.
Turkey.
If
right?
you say so. I failed geography.
He sent his ships and his soldiers to the Dardanelles
Yep.
to fight.
Right.
He had a plan ironed out, dialed in. But when the ships reached there, a couple of them were damaged from the other side.
Okay.
And they got onto the beaches, and instead of climbing the cliffs and fighting the Germans, they stopped, they paused, they recollected themselves, they set up camps, and weeks passed. By the time they decided to move forward, the Germans have dug themselves into the trenches.
Sure.
And when the British breached these cliffs and moved forward, they were massacred. Thousands and thousands of British soldiers died because of Churchill's orders. Now, his generals on the ground didn't execute the orders in the way that Churchill had planned, yet, as a leader, it's always our fault.
Yes. He
Right.
took responsibility.
One of the most catastrophic things to happen to him, his career, his reputation, and also his morale and mindset, knowing that the death of these individuals in many ways was on him.
Sure.
It kind of sent him into this 10-year streak where he went into the country and painted and wrote and just stepped out of the public eye. Well, courage shows up for Churchill both in his failures and in his successes. Further on in World War II, when the Germans had successfully invaded France, Churchill looked up and said, there's only one thing separating France from England,
Mm-hmm.
and it's this patch of water,
Right.
right? And what the Germans didn't have in France were boats, but the French did. The French Navy existed. And when Churchill realized that the French had lost control of their government and their army, he made a tough decision. And that was the decision to bomb his allies' navy and take out those ships. Because those ships were the only thing stopping the Germans from invading England.
Well, that's got to be a tough decision to attack your own ally for the sake of everybody in the long run.
Pretty tough.
Absolutely. You need courage.
Have you seen the movie Dunkirk?
I don't know. Yes, I have seen Dunkirk. Yes.
Remember in Dunkirk, you see these hundreds of thousands of British troops on the beaches of France.
Yes.
France had fallen.
Yes.
The troops were there. They're waiting to be
for the ships.
evacuated. There wasn't enough British ships to get people and get all the troops out. The vast majority of the British army was not in Britain, but on those beaches.
Right.
Churchill had to make the decision to call upon all ships, sailboats and
Fishermen.
boats.
Yep.
Every boat available in Britain was sent to those beaches. 3,000 civilian lives were lost, retrieving the hundreds of thousands of British troops that were stuck on that beach. And yet, they got the vast majority of them out, allowing England to continue on with the war and in the end become victorious.
Yes.
These decisions that are made are not always popular,
That's for sure.
but it takes courage.
Okay.
He said, Winston said, success is never found. Failure is never fatal. Courage is the only thing. One more time. Success is never found. Failure is never fatal. Courage is the only thing. I feel like that should be a tattoo. I might just get that right on my arm. Courage is the only thing.
Dare you?
You dare me? I'm afraid of needles, so maybe not. Courage is the only thing. Lastly,
what's last?
every wartime CEO,
Yes.
every wartime leader needs to take action.
A vowel, finally. Action.
You're going to have a hard time getting a word with
I know.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 consonants and 1 vowel.
Yeah.
Okay. Of all of Churchill's characteristics, all the things that we just talked about, they would all be meaningless unless they were put into action. Churchill never stopped working. It's why he was probably arguably kind of a shitty spouse and kind of a crappy father, because his commitment was to the country and to the office and to keeping Britain what it is. He used to put stickers on the orders that were sent out that said, "Action this day." I have a bracelet on my wrist right now, just one of those cheap plastic ones. I've had it on for years, though. It says, "Whatever it takes." Whatever it takes. Action this day is what German did when he took out the battleships owned by France. Action this day is what Churchill did when he evacuated all the troops off of the French beaches.
Yep.
Action this day is what Churchill did when he put the microphone in front of his mouth and he spoke to the people. Go watch, if you're inspired by this podcast, go watch The Darkest Hour tonight. And then watch Dunkirk and see how close these two movies go together. And then pick up a couple books about Churchill. If you really want to dive into this, I have a couple of my favorites. The 40 Ways to Look at Winston Churchill by Gretchen Rubin. And there's another book by Stephen Mansfield called The Character and Greatness of Winston Churchill. Two of my favorite Churchill books, not super long, good reads. And the subtitle of the second book was A Hero in a Time of Crisis.
Mm.
If we are coming into what I believe we are coming into, which is tough times,
Yes.
a recession,
Mm-hmm.
then the world is calling upon all of you listening to this podcast, and they're asking you this question. Are you going to be a wartime leader for us? Or are you just going to be known as the person who did good when the times were good?
Mm.
Winston Churchill would put it a different way. He would say, victory at all costs, victory in spite of all terror, victory however long and hard the hard may be, for without victory, there is no survival.
All right. So we got ourselves not just a lesson, we got ourselves a Winston Churchill lesson, because we took the life of probably one of the greatest wartime CEOs that will be out there. The traits that Ben gave us from Winston Churchill that we challenge each and every one of you to dig into so that you can truly be that wartime CEO. You must be visible. You must communicate. You must be a survivor. You need passion. You need to have a vision to share with everybody. You need the courage required. And probably most of all, you need to be someone who takes action. Remember these traits as you are figuring out how you can become that wartime CEO for your family, that wartime CEO for your business, and that wartime CEO for everybody around you that's looking to you for leadership.
Thanks to all the listeners from New York to Toronto to Europe to Seattle to middle of nowhere, Atlanta, California. We appreciate the over 1 million individuals that have listened to the Win, Make, Give podcast. This is season 3, and there's a lot more to come.
Join us in our Facebook group, Win, Make, Give, where we'll be keeping you up to date on some of those things. And until our next episode, as always, do good.